This is the warm-up for 2-5. We're doing 2-5?
2-6.
Thank you, 2-6. Complementary means what?
90.
Good, it means it's a 90-degree angle. So looking at this one, 24, you don't need the diagram. You just have to solve this. So how would I solve this? Good, I'm writing 90, this is 24, minus 33, and what would you get? Oh, I'm sorry, the black, you guys cannot see it, so let me change it to white. This is 90 minus 33, and what would you get? Not 66. 57 degrees. So the measure of angle 4 is 57 degrees. Good. All right, let's go ahead and do 25. Now it's telling me angle 3 is a supplement of angle 2, and the measure of angle 2 is 147 degrees. Find the measure of angle 3. How would I find this one? Good. Supplementary is 180 degrees minus 147. What would I get? Good. So my answer, the measure of angle 3, is 33 degrees. Yes, don't forget your degree signs, please. Number 26. It says name a pair of vertical angles. Who could tell me what vertical means? What vertical means? Anybody remember what vertical means? We're going to cover it this lesson again. What would the answer be for this one?
Angle 1 and 3.
All right, angle 1 and 3. What do we know about angle 1 and 3? Angle 1 and 3 is correct, but what can we say about angle 1 and 3? They're vertical angles, meaning what? Yeah. They share the same vertex.
They're on opposite sides of each other.
Good. They're opposites. Okay. Vertical angles are like opposite angles. So your answer for 26 is going to be 1 and 3. Okay. Let's just say if they had a 5 here, then 2 and 5 would be vertical angles. Okay. Any questions on the warm-up? All right. We are doing 2-6. This is the last lesson of this chapter. Last class we covered proofs. Okay, we started with proofs. We're going to continue with proofs using angles. So we mainly did segments last class. We're going to do angles this class. All right, a flowchart and paragraph proof. We are not using these in geometry. We are using a 2-column proof, which is what we've been using, our statements and our reasons. But you still need to know that there are different types of proofs, a flowchart or a flow proof. This uses boxes and arrows. So think of a flowchart like in science. I don't know if you guys have made a flowchart in science. Yeah. It has the arrows going in a circle maybe. Okay. So that's a flowchart in proof. And then a paragraph proof is exactly what it is. It's a paragraph using sentences. So we will normally be using a 2-column proof, our statements and reasons, but you still need to know that there are 3 proofs in total, 3 ways to write proofs. Okay? So please make sure, you guys are probably going to have to fill in the blank for some of these, so just make sure you're paying attention. I think you have to fill in flowchart and paragraph proofs, so please make sure you're filling it in. All right, this is the 3rd theorem in chapter 2, so if you want to make sure you remember that, this is the 3rd theorem in chapter 2. Right angle congruency theorem. Okay, we kind of know what this is. Right angles congruency theorem. All right angles are congruent. Why are they congruent? Because they all equal 90 degrees. So right angles equal 90 degrees. They are congruent. For this one, we are going to go ahead. We're just looking at an example of a flowchart. So when you're looking at this flowchart, you can see the flow, the movement of it by the arrows. It's still giving you your statements and your reasons. Okay, and it's just flowing together. So this is an example of a right angle. in a flowchart format. Looking at the next one, we are going to go ahead and use the right angle congruency theorem in our 2-column proof. So this is what we've been doing. This is how we've been solving it. All right angles are congruent. So given angle 1 and angle 2 are right angles, they want me to prove that they're congruent. So I'm going to go ahead and prove that. Looking at the first one, it says angle 1 and angle 2 are right angles. What should A be? Always given. Oops, that's a highlighter. Given. All right, looking at B, it says the measure of angle 1 is 90 degrees. The measure of angle 2 is 90 degrees. Can anybody tell me the definition of a right angle? What's the definition of a right angle? An angle that equals 90 degrees, right? So when we're looking at this, they're telling me that this is a right angle. All I'm doing now is saying that it's equal to 90 degrees. Remember, things that I can use for reasons. I can use proofs. I could use postulates, I could use given information, I could use theorems, and I can use a definition. So for this one, it's going to be definition of right angles. Okay, because it's basically telling me the definition of a right angle. A right angle equals 90 degrees. So it's just giving me that definition. All right, looking at B to C. I'm looking at B to C. How am I going from here to here? Can anybody identify what's changing? What was it? Thank you. Yes, all right, it's correct. It is substitution. What am I substituting? I'm substituting my 90 for my measure of angle 2. Why am I substituting that? Because this equals 90 degrees. Okay, if it equals 90 degrees, I could just substitute it and plug it in. So correct. C is substitution. All right, looking at D. I have angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. How am I getting from C to D? Close. What is it? What's the beginning part?
No. Definition.
Good. Definition of congruent angles. Anytime you see something go from equal to congruent or congruent to equal, and it's the same thing, it's going to be definition of, I'm going to shorten it, congruent angles. All right. Since I proved that right angles are congruent, I could simplify this proof and only make it 2 steps. How would I make it 2 steps? I'm going to write it here. Can do in 2 steps. Since I proved that right angles are congruent, I could write it as, my first one is always going to be what they're giving me. Angle 1 and angle 2 are right angles. I'm going to shorten it. And my first one is still going to be given. My second one, I'm going to write what I'm trying to prove. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And my reasoning is going to be right angles congruent theorem. This should be a T. Okay, THM is short for theorem. So I really only have to do this in 2 steps because we know that right angles are congruent because of this theorem. Does everybody understand that? Because of this theorem, we know that right angles are congruent. So when I'm looking at it, the RT, just to clarify, the RT stands for right. So here's my right angle. Here's my angle symbol. Here's my congruent symbol. And then theorem, I just shortened it. So you guys could definitely shorten stuff. But again, for now, it is multiple choice. Any questions on this one? Okay. All right, congruent supplement theorem. What does supplementary mean? Yeah, it is 180. All right, congruent means they're like equal, 180 degrees theorems. Okay, so looking at it, two angles are supplements to the same angle, or the congruent angles, then they are congruent. So looking at this, it's telling me if angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary, so here's angle 1, here's angle 2, and angle 3 and angle 2 are supplementary, then angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent. Okay, do we all understand what that's saying? If I have supplementary angles that are the same, they're going to be congruent. Please make sure you understand that because you will see lines similar to this on your test. Okay. So looking at this, just to clarify that both angles are supplementary. They're supplements for angle 2. Okay, so whichever one I use, whether it's angle 2 and angle 3, it's going to equal 180. Whether it's angle 1 and angle 2, it's going to equal 180. So they're both supplements of angle 2. All right, looking at this, I'm trying to prove congruent supplement theorem. You will see proofs on your test that have more than one given. Okay, so looking at this example, it says given angle 1 and angle 2 are supplements, angle 3 and angle 2 are supplements. I'm trying to prove that angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent. So what's the first reasoning for me? Given, always given. All right, looking at it, how am I getting from 1 to 2? You have to look closely to these. Do not just assume it. Look at it, think about it before you answer. Yes. Good. This one's definition of supplementary. Why? Because supplementary means two angles added together to equal 180 degrees. And that's basically what they're giving me. They're telling me that these are both supplements. And then they're giving me that adding them together is equal to 180. So this is going to be definition of supplementary. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and look at number 3. What's happening from 2 to 3? What's going on there? What would this one be? This one would be substitution. Good, thank you. This is substitution. What am I substituting? I'm going to go ahead and highlight it so you can see the substitution. If it's telling me that this is 180 degrees and this is also equal to 180 degrees, I'm substituting these. So this is correct. This is substitution. And then what about 4? What is changing here? What am I doing? Yes. Not transitive property. Not transitive property. Looks like it would be, but it isn't.
Segment? Wait.
We're not dealing with segments, so I can't say anything with a segment. What would this one be? Looking at it, what's happening? No, but what's happening here? Don't even think about vocabulary. What's happening? The measure of angle 2 is we're getting rid of it. How would I get rid of it? Good. It would be subtraction. How am I getting rid of it? I'm subtracting the measure of angle 2 to both sides of my equal sign. And what's that called? Good. Subtraction property of equality. And then 5, what would this one be? Good, definition of congruent angles. I'm going to shorten it and write it as congruent angles. Again, because I proved that supplementary angles are congruent, I could also do this one in 2 steps. Solving this in 2 steps, I can go from step 1 to step 5 with theorem as my reason. Again, which theorem are we talking about? We are talking about the congruent supplement theorem. So if I just wrote 1 given, 2, angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, my reason would be congruent supplements theorem. Okay, you have to remember what the criteria is in order to use for my reasons. Maria, you had a question? No? Okay. All right, I can use postulates, I can use properties, I can use theorems, I can use given, or I can use definitions. 5 things. Any questions on this? All right, we have another theorem. I know a lot of vocabulary that you have to study. Congruent components theorem. Complements theorem. Complements meaning what? 90. Good. If 2 angles are complements to the same angle or to the congruent angles, then they are congruent. So looking at this one, if angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary, and angle 3 and angle 2 are complementary, then angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent. If you look at this one and you're wondering, oh, but angle 2 and angle 3 aren't complementary angles, they are, only because they're leaving a gap here. Okay, they're leaving a gap right here, so they're not counting this gap. For example, if this was 45 and 45, both of these added together would be 90 degrees. Remember, supplementary angles and complementary angles do not have to be touching. You're just adding 2 angles together. They do not have to be touching. All right, last slide that we're going to do today. This is linear pair postulates. Do we know what linear pairs are? This we learned in chapter 1. You guys have to remember this. Some of you made a mistake and we went over it at the beginning of class. Yes. Good. A pair that equals 180 degrees. So can someone tell me the difference between linear pair and supplementary? Yeah. Linear pairs still have to do with angles. Linear pair, it's 2. So I still have to do with angles. The difference is this, okay, looking at this image right here, this is a linear pair. Can someone tell me the difference between a linear pair and I'm going to give you a supplementary? What's the difference between these two if this was a straight line? Can someone tell me the difference? Good, one's touching and the other isn't. So linear pair are also adjacent angles. Adjacent meaning they're next to each other. All vocabulary you guys have to keep up with. So supplementary angles, you could add 2 angles to equal 180. Linear pairs mean they're right next to each other. They have to be touching shoulder to shoulder. They have to be adjacent. So looking at this statement, it says if 2 angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary, which is true. I'm adding 2 angles to equal 180. So if angle 1 and angle 2 form a linear pair, so angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary, and the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180. You cannot forget that. A lot of you made a mistake on the quiz because you forgot what linear pair means. You have to remember that word. Any questions on this one? All right. Yes. All right, we're continuing with vertical angle. All right, vertical angles. Vertical angles, this is the definition. Oops, definition. Okay, how they're formed. Okay, vertical angles are what kind of angles? You could tell me what kind of angles these are. Equal, yes, vertical angles are congruent, but what kind of angles are they? Where can I identify them? Good, they're across from each other, they're opposite angles, opposite rays. So looking here, 1, 3 are vertical angles, 2, 4 are vertical angles, and vertical angles are congruent. Okay, so if this over here was 30, what should 4 be? I'm sorry, what should 1 be? 30. Could I figure out angle 2 and angle 4? Yes. How could I figure that out? This is a straight line. This is a linear line, which is 180. And how would I find angle 2 and angle 4? Good. I would subtract 180 minus 30. What would I get? Good. So this would be 150. And this would be 150. All right. All right, vertical angle congruent theorem. This is another theorem. Vertical angles are congruent. I just told you that. They are congruent. And looking at this, what angles are congruent? All right, good. Thank you for giving me all of them. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. And angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. Okay, please make sure you know how to write them. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. And angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. All right, this is a paragraph proof. Why is it a paragraph proof? Because it's written as a paragraph. So this is vertical angle congruency theorem. This is what we're proving. Angle 5 and angle 7 are vertical angles. So looking at it, we're able to identify that here. Here's angle 5, here's angle 7. And then they're giving me my proof written as a paragraph. You don't need to know this. We will not use this, but you need to know what it looks like. So it's completely different than our 2-column proof. Okay, our 2-column has our statements and our reasons. The paragraph proof is just one paragraph with all the information in there. All right, we're going to go ahead and solve this one. We need to prove vertical angle theorem. So it's similar to the previous one, but now it's written as a 2-column proof. So it says angle 5 and angle 7 are vertical angles. Angle 5 is congruent to angle 7. I need to figure out what my reasons are. So looking at this, my statements and my reasons, what's my first reason? Given. Good, it's always going to be given. Let me go to my pen. Good, this one's always given. Looking at the next one, it says angle 5 and angle 6 are linear pair. Angle 6 and angle 7 are linear pair. How am I getting from 1 to 2? This one's a little tricky. Vertical angles. We said vertical angles form linear pairs. So from 1 to 2, vertical angles to linear angles, this is going to be definition of linear pairs.
Will this be on the test?
Mm-hmm.
This like question.
Not this exact question.
Like this type of question.
Mm-hmm. You're going to have 2 proofs on your test.
But like with linear pair.
It could be with anything.
Wait, so how much free responses are there?
There's quite a few. It's like it's almost like half and half, but the multiple choice ones, the free response ones are multiple choice. So if you guys know the definitions of everything, you can really use process of elimination. Jaden?
Wait, the free responses.
How do you figure out that's a definition?
Okay, because I'm going from vertical to linear because we know the definition of vertical angles. We should know the definition of vertical angles. Vertical angles form linear pairs, meaning here are my vertical angles. I'm going to highlight it. These 2. Then they're telling me, look at what they're saying. 5 and 6 and 6 and 7 are linear pairs, which they are. Because a straight line forms linear pairs. So here's a pair, and here's a pair. This is definition of linear pair. Two angles next to each other, and now they're telling me it's going to equal supplementary angles. So now it's linear pair postulate. You have to study these. Miguel, not right now. You're going to have to wait until we're done with this. Okay, so 3. Now they're telling me linear pairs to supplementary. This is going to be linear pair postulate. Okay, linear pair postulate, if you forgot what it was written as, let me change this color, angle 5 and angle 7 are linear pairs. Angle 5 and angle 7, let me actually write, they form linear pairs. Meaning they are supplementary. And then angle 5 plus angle 7 equals 180. Okay, that was the postulate for linear pairs. So now looking at the next one, I'm going from supplementary to congruent. This is going to be congruent supplementary theorem. Guys, all the theorems are written on here. You have to study them. Make a Quizlet, make something for you to study them and be able to identify them. If you practice proofs, the more you practice them, guys, the better you'll get at them because it's just practice. It's a lot of practice. Practice and repetition. Example number 6, some of you guys saw this on your homework. I want you to try and solve it on your own. Go ahead and solve this. You're solving for x. Remember, what do we know about vertical angles? They're the same. So go ahead and solve for x. Looking at this, we said vertical angles are equal. Girls, shh. A lot of you guys, this was hopefully pretty easy. A lot of you guys got it right. Just please make sure you're checking your work. You need to set it up equal to each other. So I'm putting what? How am I setting it up equal?
3x plus 1 equals 148.
What did you say?
Equals 148. Algebra. We're going back to algebra. What do I have to do to both sides? Subtract 1 to both sides. I'm going to get 3x equals 147. And what operation did I just use?
Division of equality.
I used subtraction property of equality. Now what am I going to use?
Division of equality.
Division property of equality. X is going to equal 49. Okay. Who could tell me how would I find QPR?
Plugging in.
Do I have to?
180.
Oh.
Do I have to plug it in?
No. 148 minus 49.
It's just, nope.
What?
It's just 148. They're both the same.
Oh.
I thought you were talking about the two, like...
Okay, I'm not done. How would I figure out what this angle in blue over here is? Subtracted by 180. I have linear pairs. Okay? So what's 148 minus 180?
Is it?
What is it, Robert? Say
I didn't say it.
Oh.
That was my boy. He said 32.
Good. 32 for this one and 32 for this one. So we're able to find everything.
Where'd you get the 32 from?
I subtracted 148
Oh,
minus, or I should flip it the other way, 180 minus 148. And that's what's giving me my 32.
how do you know to use 180?
Whenever you have two lines like this, they're linear, meaning it's a straight line. So if they're giving me this number over here, let's say that this number was 140. I know that this is going to be 40. And then I should also know the other two because they're vertical. This is also 140 and this is also 40. Okay, Robert? You have to wait until he comes back. All right, last slide and then we're done. It says classify each statement as true or false. So the first one says, if the measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle plus the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C equals 180, then angles A, B, and C are supplementary. Before we answer this, who could tell me the definition of supplementary angles?
Angle that equals to 180 degrees.
Okay, but there's a little bit more than that. Supplementary. What does supplementary angles mean?
Like angles that equal 180.
Okay, it adds up to equal 180, but how many angles add up to equal 180? Two. So is this true or false? This is false. Okay, it's not necessarily just angles that add to equal 180. It's specifically two angles that add to 180. So it's false. Maybe. It says can only be two angles for supplementary only. Vertical angles have the same measure. Is that true or false?
True.
True. And let's look at the last one. If angle 1 and angle 2 are vertical angles, the measure of angle 1 equals 2x plus 8, and the measure of angle 2 equals 3x plus 4, then x equals 14. Is that true or false? So go ahead and solve it.
Let's do it, guys.
Tell me, is it true or false if you solve it?
Robert.
Is it true or false if you solve it? Okay, a couple ways you can solve it. Vertical angles we said are equal, right? You could have set it up as 2x plus 8 equals 3x plus 4, or I know some of you just plugged it in, right? Okay, if you plugged it in, is it true or false? It's going to be false. X should equal 4. All right, that's the last slide for this lesson. Please make sure you study. I emailed you guys a document with definitions that you have to know for your test. Please study it. It is multiple choice and free response on your test. Your test is when?
Monday,
Tuesday. Review is Monday.